is super impactful. He's a man of many titles, but most importantly, husband, father, freight creator, and CEO over at Rocket Shipping. Let's go ahead and welcome in Gabe. He's CEO of Rocket Shipping, as I just said. So welcome in, Gabe.
Hey, thanks for having me, Blythe.
Keeping the website and social conversation going a little bit, how important is that to you guys over at Rocket Shipping?
It's our main focus right now is creating content. Our website we threw up right when we started the company 2 years ago, and we've really gone all in on social media since then. We are redesigning the website, but most of our customers and clients, their first touch is a cold call or an email, but they go check us out on social, on LinkedIn, TikTok even, and they form an impression before they call us back or email us. We want to be able to control that and try to control the narrative and push it towards where we're aiming.
Love that. So for folks who may not know, what is your sort of freight origin story? How did you get into the world of freight? How did you found the company, all that good stuff?
Pretty typical freight story. I did not aim to go into freight. I was working in college as an intern at a company called Unishippers, mostly because I had gotten married and my wife told me I had to have a job, even though we were still in college. And that was a foreign concept to me. I figured I would go find the first job I could that was on the bulletin board, started cold calling. It was like 100 cold calls a day. From there, I branched off and ended up finishing my school, was going to be a chiropractor and decided to stick with freight, found an affinity to sales, progressed through that through another company and was a sales rep there. And then during COVID in 2020, I decided I'm going to go start Rocket Shipping, which our main purpose and our motto is to serve e-commerce companies that sell items that are too big and too bulky to ship UPS or FedEx ground and have to go LTL freight. There's a lot of complexities delivering to residences, whether it's white glove or just curbside. And so we went out to solve that problem.
I love that you brought that up because in our pre-show document, you had also said that you love talking about the consumer delivery experience when it comes to LTL freight, expectations versus reality. What's the most, I guess, misunderstood part of LTL shipping?
Yeah, I call it the prime problem. And I think you can know who that's referencing. But essentially, consumers expect if they're ordering something online that it's going to get there in 2 days, whether that's a large sofa or just a book for their kid. They think it's going to be the same experience. Well, LTL freight was never designed to deliver to residences. Each terminal for even a major national carrier only has a few liftgate trucks. Every residential delivery needs a liftgate, so everything's delayed. Pretty poor communication for setting the appointments, and most people expect their packages to just get delivered while they're at work. LTL freight almost always, and it is evolving, but the way the market has gone is that you need a delivery appointment, and the best case scenario is that the freight carrier gives you a 2-hour window. The worst case is that they say between 8 and 5, which is your working hours. You take a day off of work. All too often, the freight carriers will, not be able to make that delivery, even though they had an appointment. Customer or consumer has to call into the e-commerce company and yell and say, I took a day off of work. Where's my delivery? This is ridiculous. At Rocket Shipping, that's what we do is we manage that whole experience. We communicate with the customer or the end user, and we communicate with our client and the carrier, and we kind of are the liaison for that.
And so when we're talking about these kind of shipments, what are some of the common, I guess, commodities that you're dealing with?
Yeah, I think it ranges, but like the most popular would be furniture, couches, desks. During COVID, a lot of standing desks were ordered, and we delivered a lot of desks to people's houses instead of at offices. Fire pits, grills, pool tables would be one that is not as often, but that can't ship small package. Anything that you can imagine you're ordering online that is more than 100 pounds and is probably more than 60 inches in length. Even the mattresses that people are accustomed to delivering, most of the carriers don't want to deliver those anymore either. It's a kind of a niche of home goods.
And so when you're talking about, I guess, these home goods, like the first thing that sort of pops in my mind is that if I order something from Amazon or I order something from Wayfair or something like that, they offer also like the white glove delivery aspect of it where they're going to come into your house and sort of set it up for you. Is that what you guys provide as well? Or how does that process work?
Typically, the client that we work with, we would provide curbside, but we also provide white glove. White glove's pretty expensive. And as you know, and everybody is aware, there's always free shipping in an e-commerce shopping cart, right? Because you don't want to add friction. You don't want to charge on top of what your discount is or what your product is. Almost no one offers free white glove shipping. And if they do, they've got massive leverage and they have warehouses everywhere. SMBs in the e-commerce, they offer curbside shipping for LTL. Unfortunately, and because of the consumer expectations for the delivery, delivery, it almost always is ordered, placed, picked up, and then the consumer goes, hey, I need this brought to the second floor of my apartment or to the second floor of my house, or I need this inside. I'm not going to be home. At Rocket Shipping, we will help our clients upgrade it to white glove. So we'll reroute the shipment to a final mile facility and facilitate the white glove inside delivery.
That makes a ton of sense, and I'm sure it's super helpful, especially if you're ordering like a huge piece of furniture and you have no idea how to get it up the stairs. I'm sure that's a big issue. Or another option is like, well, if it just arrives and then you are asking the driver to do this, and the driver's like, I'm not doing that. I'm not paid to do all that.
Yeah.
I would think that's a big sort of strain point for a lot of folks. Another topic that you mentioned in the show, Doc, because I'm just going to read here because it's something that I've heard sort of echoing around the freight space, but I'd love for you to dive into it more. But you said that you're passionate about the major disconnect that we have in the freight tech space right now, because most of the TMS solutions and aggregators are being built and developed by people with no experience actually moving stuff, and that there are less than 10 SaaS companies in the space that are building tech intuitively with relevant freight experience. And you said there's a lot of innovation in the supply chain space, but a lot of it is wasted effort, especially at the enterprise level adoption. So can you kind of break down of this, I guess, misconception of the freight tech space right now? Because it seems revolutionary, everything that's happening, but from what you're saying is it's almost like you kind of got to do a little bit more digging before you make that full commitment. Is that an accurate, I guess, assumption?
Yeah, and I think where I made that comment was probably around the LTL space. The truckload space, I don't know as much about, but in the LTL space, there's a lot of SaaS companies and TMS solutions that basically either are trying to serve the brokerage, so they only are focused on how to manage markups and invoicing so that you can maximize profitability for a brokerage model, or they're focused on having a rebate from a freight carrier, so they're building it to be intuitive for that. I don't know of any really impressive TMSs yet, and I think there's some being worked on that are focused on like consumer delivery experience and streamlining LTL to final mile and actually improving that side of it. And since our economy, even before COVID, was heading towards more e-commerce than retail, I think that the focus for these SaaS solutions needs to be on the end user and the client rather than the carrier or the broker.
That's one common complaint that I hear is that with a lot of tech adoption is that the executives or the mid-management, they're making these decisions on what to buy without actually consulting with the employees that are going to have to actually use this software.
Yeah.
Do you have any, I guess, maybe any tips on simply talking to your in the trenches employees on how to adopt software that's going to work for them?
Another thing that I'll mention is that a lot of the best TMSs are built by corporations who move freight, but then they keep it exclusive to them. That's great for their company, but no one else can use it except for their customers. And so what I'm talking about is more the SaaS companies out of Silicon Valley that are building TMSs. They don't have any freight experience. They can code and they partner with carriers, or they partner with brands, but they've never moved a shipment. And so everything from the process of how you get a BOL to how you dispatch to a carrier, it's too clunky because they're worried about markups and managing multiple tariffs instead of, it shouldn't take 3 clicks to get an LTL shipment. It should be API. You don't need to build a load. You should be able to auto dispatch. And so a couple of the TMSs out there are building in really good logic using, partners like Project 44, Banyan. They build in logic for dimensions and all the different rules and complexities for LTL, but they're not really white label platforms. And so that's where probably the disconnect is. Those that are white label platforms are building it for brokerages. Those that are really intuitive TMS platforms are owned by corporations, and there's a disconnect there.
And so it's obviously it's a communication issue, which I think is sort of the
Yeah.
it's going to be the same issue, just different technology. Is if you don't have that line of communication there from the people who are actually going to be using these tools, then the user experience is just going to dwindle. And if people aren't actually using it, then that's a lot of wasted money. What other stories in freight should be talked about more?
I think one of the other stories in freight that should be talked about more is, generally speaking, consumer experience, because I'm biased to that, but probably, and there's a lot of hype and talk about this with companies like Steam Logistics, but non-competes, non-solicits, and the industry being able to be mobile from company to company or start your own business. I think that's not talked enough about, between how you can have these college kids come in and sign a non-compete, but they don't really know what they're signing, and they're stuck with a company. If they want to move, they have to do it under the radar. They get intimidated. So there's a lot of that in this industry. I experienced it myself. myself, and I know others who have as well. So that's probably being talked about by Steam a lot, but not very many people besides them.
Why do you think that more companies aren't talking about this? Is it simply because it's what they've done for so long, or is it? I don't really know the reason, but I'd be curious to hear if you had some insight into that.
I think that, like most industries, and probably even more than most industries, is that a lot of freight sales and tech can be done remote, and corporations are really worried that they'll lose their employees to either, outsourced sales like SellX, that's like an Uber for sales reps, right? They are also worried that even if they have a geography in Chicago, doesn't matter anymore because a company like Rocket Shipping can hire them and have them work remote. And so I think that's what they're worried about. That's why it's not talked about, but it's going to change pretty soon here. And I think people are much more mobile and they can take their book of business with them a lot easier.
And it also opens up. I mean, if you're a company and you are hiring, your talent pool opens up tremendously if you're not just looking in the
Oh,
geographic
yeah.
area of where your company is. But let's I guess transition into sort of that part of the conversation, because you guys, from looking at your TikTok videos, you have a really cool office. It looks like you guys all get along really well. How are you approaching, I guess, recruiting efforts when you have this cool office, but then you also want to recruit from all over the country? How are you guys tackling that?
Our main focus with our TikTok is actually recruiting and saying, come work at Rocket Shipping because this is a fun place to work. And I think you talked about it earlier in your show, make it fun. We certainly put an emphasis on that. And we do have videos about what we do and how we help clients and how we can help that supply chain for LTL. But when you're talking hiring in office versus remote, we do both. I have employees in Chicago and in Florida and in Tennessee, and I'm out of Fargo, North Dakota, and I have Minneapolis. And I think that that's kind of one of our superpowers is that I started Rocket Shipping during COVID, so I had no option but to hire remote. It's the prison of two ideas. People are afraid of remote versus in office. I like both, and I love being in the office. I work in the office every day in Fargo, a 20-minute drive, but I come in every day, and I've got a team here of 10 people. But you can certainly expand and create the ability to go after top talent and attract it from across the U.S. to work for a startup like Rocket Shipping, and that's a big advantage. So that's why we're using the TikTok to do that.
How are you fostering, I guess, that community when you have a hybrid work approach? How are you involving, I guess, employees from other states, making it still feel like they're a part of the company? Is that a process that's evolving for you guys? Have you maybe got it figured out or still working on it?
I don't think we have it figured out. It's always a work in progress, but it's my biggest thing is that like my role now, instead of just being the guy that brings on revenue, which is how I started it, or helping on ops, my role now is to be the people person. Not only am I trying to attract talent and interviewing people and bringing them here to meet our team, but I'm also, next week, we're going to northern Minnesota for a summit for our sales team. And we're all going to go golfing for a couple of days and have some meetings and have some camaraderie. So we've got a guy coming from Chicago and from Tennessee and from Minneapolis all the way to the same spot. We did that in March. We did that in January. So it costs money, but I really think, considering we have 25 people at our company, we're still a small company. I really think it's important that everybody feels part of the same vision and that there is a clear vision on where we're going. That's the other part, is that everybody wants to feel like they're part of something and know where they're going and know how they can contribute to it. And so even if they're remote, we have standing meetings every day with ops and our sales and our marketing. Everybody knows where we're going and how we're trying to get there. So a huge part of it.
I love that. That's what I've heard from a couple other really successful companies that I follow, is that they're fully remote, but they put a really strong emphasis on having the summits, having the meetups, the retreats where they can go and they can bond. Because I think for a lot of folks, when you're used to working in an office, there's always going to be people that just annoy the hell out of you. And so when you have that sort of that distance, that you don't have to work next to that annoying person that interrupts your workflow, but you could still, go have a beer with them and play some golf with them. I think that's a really good balance for the folks who want to get some serious work done, but also, want to have some boundaries when it comes to living at work as well. Now, you had mentioned about your marketing department. What does your marketing department look like? Is it, I know we've seen a couple of the funny videos. Maybe we can play one in the background of even one of that recently went viral with the social media girl. Let's play that clip.
Is it going to play? Okay.
Wasn't that just magnificent? I was worried it was getting a little dodgy in the middle part, but then that finale, wow.
You know,
Yeah, that one
with that
just
video
went
particular.
viral, like 200,000 views.
Yeah, it's crazy. And that's I keep preaching the power of TikTok, but you guys are really started that's how I found out about your company was through TikTok. So how are you, I guess, structuring your marketing department and how are you, I guess, attacking social media? Is it really just like the social media girl? I hate calling her that because I'm sure she does so many other different things than just being the social media girl. She's killing it, first of all. But second of all, how are you guys, I guess, approaching the marketing of rocket shipping?
To give her credit, her name is Elena Shalstead, and she started with us in March. She's from the Fargo area. She's been incredible, and she's really good at TikTok and a lot of other things in marketing. But our main approach actually is not just TikTok, not just LinkedIn. I'm trying to build personal brand on LinkedIn, super focused on that, not selling rocket shipping, but really just trying to add value about LTL. It's probably an overused phrase, but there's riches in the niches, and I'm trying to stay as niche as possible within transportation. So I talk a lot about LTL. We ship truckload, we ship white glove, we ship a lot of modes, but I talk about LTL because that's what I'm best at and that's what I know. But our approach to marketing and media in general is actually giving a little bit too much away because I'm launching another company called Rocket Media within Rocket Shipping. I have a team of 5 now. All they're going to do is build out a media package for Rocket Shipping and then for others around content marketing, personal branding, and then also the traditional sales and marketing, which is video marketing and vidyard and all of those techniques to, make sales and land deals. So
I love
we're
that. So
that's pretty much my main focus.
so we're gonna have you back on the show in the future to talk about Rocket Media because that just sounds it's something that is sorely needed in this industry. Even looking at the top,
Yeah.
carriers in the U.S., I'm like, God, some of this is just the same. And you guys are
Mhm.
really standing out by doing something different, something more modern. In addition to your social media approach, you're also making regular video content. Anybody who's watched your videos before knows the backdrop, knows the scenery that you're in
Yeah.
right now. How are you approaching, I guess, sort of that video portion of the topics that you're covering? Are you coming up with the topic ideas yourself? Are you planning these out on a weekly basis? Walk me through how you're approaching that, I guess, sort of the industry insights part of your strategy.
Pretty much leading back into the Rocket Media. That's why I've got those people and I've hired them and we're using it for that. Up until probably 2-3 weeks ago, I'd kind of been winging it. I just sit down and Elena is again a big help on that. She sets everything up. I walk into this studio, which is inside my office here. This is our conference room. And I've always been able to just sit down. I do it unscripted. I just go for it. And then she edits it and cuts out every breath and makes it real smooth. I learned that from Alex Hormozzi. If you don't know who he is, you should. And I keep a huge emphasis on, like you said, consistency of brand. And so I always wear this hat. I don't always wear this hat outside of my videos. I do wear hats pretty often, but I always wear them for the videos. I always have the same background at the same conference table because if people are familiar with my brand, they will inherently trust it, even if it's maybe not deserved. So I still have to live up to that. But that's how I see media working.
That approach is I know that like Steve Jobs used to take that approach. Mark Zuckerberg is another one that takes that approach where they wear the same thing every day because as a leader, if they have to make one less decision a day, they want it to
Yeah.
be, or that they have to make one more decision a day, they want it to be revenue based instead of, what they're actually wearing. So I think that that's super smart to kind of
Mhm.
keep the same, let the content speak for itself. And then, it doesn't really matter, what else you're wearing as long as it's consistent with what viewers are used to seeing. Typically to get started in content marketing, a CEO has to be convinced to do it. Especially it's usually one person, the social media girl,
Yeah.
which I have been, to try to convince the CEO to start doing content marketing. Was that the situation for you, or were you the first to say, we got to start doing this?
No, this was my idea. I was the first one to come up with it. And then I started doing it last fall on my own. And then I realized that running a company of 20 people and doing this is very difficult for anybody who thinks, oh, how does he spend that much time doing this? I don't. I have Elena, I have a social media team. But before that, it was inconsistent and it wasn't effective. And so now I said, hey, I want to do this. I'm going to go all in on it. That's always kind of been my style is to, if I'm going to do something, I'm going all in. And so I hired a team and I put the expense on rocket shipping and said, it's going to be worth it. There's going to be an ROI and it'll make me efficient. That's the story of how that got started.
So speaking of ROI, how are you answering the ROI question? Are you getting clients from this? Are you getting employees? You said your TikTok strategy is mainly about recruiting, but what does that ROI
Yeah.
look like for you?
So TikTok is recruiting and that's been working. And we've actually, I'm on the show because of TikTok. We had a couple of people already they message us on TikTok and ask if we need carrier sales reps. And, we're building out truckloads. So we do. As far as ROI on LinkedIn, there's not a great tangible, I got a client because of this, or they watched one video and converted. However, I did put out a video 2 days ago. We're looking for help with a TMS solution and we have a great TMS. We're just trying to add on some services. And so I put out a video and I asked for some help. And within 15 minutes, I had 4 or 5 VPs or founders of TMS solutions talking to me. Whether it was a referral from somebody who watched my video or them reaching out themselves. And I've already had 3 meetings. I see that as an ROI, being connected.
Sure.
And then for LinkedIn, recruiting top talent, that's certainly some of the industry leaders probably know who I am, even though I'm not an industry leader. You don't know very many CEOs. If I walked by the CEO of one of the top 10 carriers that you were talking about, I may not recognize him in the street. People may recognize me at a trade show because they've seen my videos. I don't know, but I'm certainly not an industry leader. It just appears that way from LinkedIn.
Exactly. You always have to manage, sort of 2 different perceptions, the one that is reality and the one that is perceived. And you are really killing it out here with a lot of this different content marketing. And so when you have these different segment ideas that you're coming up with, do you have sources of what you're trying to, I guess, hit on? Or is it really just whatever comes to you, whatever you're feeling for that day? Because I think a lot of CEOs and a lot of busy people, they get caught up with the nuances of planning, whereas they would just, I think, would be so much more beneficial if they just sat down at the microphone and talked about what's going on in their business this week. Is that sort of your approach?
Yeah. You nailed it because yesterday's In the Weeds Wednesday, I was in the office. Elena is great about always having the camera kind of ready to go. And then we turn the light on. And I was on a call with a client. We were solving a drop trailer. They had limited dock space. They only had 4 doors. And so we had to figure out which drop trailer, which carrier, and if we could live load with 2 others for LTL. And then I said, hey, Elena, let's go record In the Weeds Wednesday about drop trailers. And so that's how I do all my content. I run the business and then I hear customer stories and I go, okay, this is how it relates to somebody else in LTL. Instead of how to, I give a how I. And that's my differentiator, I think.
Love that. I think that's where a lot of folks also mess up how you should do things. It's when in reality, you're just giving your own experience and people can pick and choose what works best for them. I love that approach. I think we're going to be seeing a lot more of your content over on LinkedIn, especially on TikTok. Any marketing plans in the future? Or is it just going to be a sort of this is what's going on this week and that's what we're going to talk about kind of strategy from you guys?
Yeah, we're still startup mode with our main product, which is our LTL brokerage and our white glove solution. So I'm pretty buried in revenue producing activity. And my main goal right now is bringing on VP level executives and really trying to build this out from where we're at to where we're going. I'm still just taking the media strategy one step at a time. Keep an eye on the LinkedIn. I will be announcing some launches with Rocket Media and what we're going to do with that.
That's awesome. I can't wait to hear more about it. Where can folks follow more of your work, rocket shipping, all that good stuff?
Yeah, I think LinkedIn and TikTok. And if you have the links for that, or otherwise if it's in the show notes, that would be where I would watch if I wanted to learn more about rocket shipping right now.
Heck yeah. We got it all listed in the show notes. Make it easy for the lazy folks like myself. Appreciate your time. Awesome perspective and really love what you're doing out here on social media. You are proving the blueprint of what I've been trying to tell these companies to take advantage of. So you're out here killing it. So is Elena, AKA social media girl. She had a video go viral the other day, which you can't really put a dollar amount on that kind of exposure. I mean, you can technically, but you're going to be reaping the rewards of that one video for months, maybe years. So congratulations on all the cool work and excited to see more coming out of you guys.
Thanks so much. I appreciate it. Keep doing what you're doing. You're crushing it.
Thank you. Likewise, you too.